Well, we got another video up here for you guys. It's the Boston College Eagles. I know 2 videos in one day is kind of wild, but able to pump these out today, and hopefully we can pump one or two more out tomorrow, and who knows how many on Wednesday. But make sure you guys subscribe for more. If you want to see a team quicker, you could, of course, comment down below and comment what you think the Boston College Eagles are going to do here in the 2025 season. How high are you guys on them? I'm going to give you my opinion here in this video. Make sure you like the video if you like the video. All right, taking a look at the Boston College Eagles coming off of a 7-6 season in year one of Bill O'Brien. Now, this team ended up starting off with a pretty big statement win, even though Florida State played in week 0, lost. They ended up being terrible later in the year. The Seminoles were still, coming off of an undefeated regular season and an ACC championship where when Boston College essentially ran down their throat, a lot of people kind of took note of that. They also played Missouri very tight on the road, showing that Boston College was going to be pretty competitive in the upcoming season in ACC play. It didn't start off super hot in ACC play, though. Losing to both Virginia schools, getting blown out against Virginia Tech on the road, losing to Louisville in a heartbreaker, ended up getting a big win against Syracuse that kind of steadied the ship. And the guy that steadied the ship for them when things went a little bit awry with Thomas Castellanos, especially throwing the football, was Grayson James. Now, Grayson James is a player who comes in from FIU a year ago, and he's got a lot of experience under his belt, 3 years worth of experience of meaningful playing time coming into this upcoming season. He's the experienced guy. Dylan Lonergan, more on him in a second. But yeah, overall, you could say it was a successful finish to their season, though. After losing to SMU, they won 2 big games against North Carolina and Pitt, closing out at home, in which in Chestnut Hill, you did see that Bill O'Brien was doing a pretty good job of winning these games, beating teams like Michigan State, North Carolina, and Pitt, and getting their big upset as well against Syracuse, losing in the Pinstripe Bowl to Nebraska 15-20 is how they closed the season. So as we look ahead to the 2025 team, what do they bring back from last year's team? And on offense, a couple of names jump out to me. First off, Grayson James, as I mentioned, he's coming back. But they also bring back both Jaden Skeet and Lewis Bond. Reed Harris is also another name to mention there. They brought in VJ Wilkins out of the transfer portal, a wide receiver from Campbell. So a little lower FCS action right there. And then they bring back Jeremiah Franklin over at the tight end spot. The quarterback battle, and the reason why I'm portraying it as a quarterback battle, is simply because of this. The steady hand experience, who took a big leap as far as at the very least being secure with the football and very accurate, or more accurate, better decisions. Grayson James, who really led that kind of turnaround that got them to a bowl game in the first place last year. He's back, but Bill O'Brien also brought in Dylan Lonergan, who he did recruit out of high school at Alabama. And this is a kid with a lot of talent, went to be a dual sport athlete at Alabama, ended up playing just football, or is committing to just play football over at Boston College. A couple of transfers on the offensive line on the interior. We'll see if they can patch that up, because losing a couple of guys there, losing a key name there, Ozzie Trapilo, to the NFL draft. I mean, that's going to be a big loss there. Jude Bowery, an experienced guy, been in the program for 4 years. We'll see how he can fit there at the left tackle position. On defense, I also really like this defense too, because their front seven is really, really experienced. When you got to start with the senior linebacker, Davion Crouch. He's a really good player, a fun one to watch. Number 1 there. Owen McGowan is also back there at middle linebacker. So I really like these linebackers, this duo that's going to play in this 4-2-5 scheme defense here for Tim Lewis, the defensive coordinator. Owen Studemeyer, the big guy in the middle, by the way, a redshirt senior. Quintavious Hutchins, another player to keep an eye on, senior on the defensive line. Cedarius McConnell, senior. Edwin Kalenji, I think I said that right. He is back as a redshirt junior. The secondary is a little bit iffier. Depth at safety is going to be a huge concern. KP Price is going to have to be a big-time playmaker back there. And they really need their corners to play Amari Jackson and Max Tucker at a high level. And also the graduate senior Cameron Martinez playing in that nickel spot needs to definitely play big time for this Boston College team. As we take a look at their schedule here in 2025, you can really see that this is a very backloaded schedule. Let me start with before the first bye, a very manageable schedule. With that being said, though, 2 road games. Michigan State, maybe not as hard of a place to travel as Stanford, but still a pretty tough travel spot ahead of going out to Palo Alto, who I think most people can agree is the most vulnerable ACC team on anybody's schedule this year, with the whole mess that happened with Troy Taylor and Frank Reich coming in. Yeah, it's a mess out there at Stanford. I think that that's a pretty solid first 3 games to get before the bye, but I think that bye coming as early as it is, this middle stretch between the 2 byes, you can kind of break it down into 2 separate stretches with UConn sandwiched in the middle, but California off the bye, at Pittsburgh, and then Clemson. Pretty brutal to get at Pittsburgh and Clemson back to back. UConn, by the way, not going to be a slouch. It's not going to be an easy game. And these are spots where Boston College in the past has stumbled or flirted with stumbling. Then, after the UConn game, this stretch is brutal. At Louisville, Notre Dame, SMU, Georgia Tech, and then off the bye, they go to Syracuse, a team that they beat last year. So maybe a little bit of a revenge factor. And if you learn anything about Syracuse last year, they were playing their best football at the end of the year. So this is a pretty tough draw for the Boston College Eagles in 2025 when you're considering what they could have gotten in the ACC. I mean, when you look at this, if I'm remembering correctly, and I don't pull up the odds or anything before doing these previews, and maybe it's something I should start doing, I'm pretty sure Louisville, SMU, Georgia Tech, Clemson are all in the top 5 of odds to win the ACC championship. So if you take the top 5, the only one that they miss is Miami. And by the way, Syracuse and Pittsburgh, both road games, are going to be right there knocking on the door behind those 5 schools. So when you talk about 7 games, if you include Notre Dame, that are really challenging for Boston College to pull off, this is going to be a fun schedule prediction because I was raving about all the experience they have on defense. I was raving about the receiver experience that they have back, the experience at quarterback, and the talent at quarterback, no matter which side they go. And the only real question I have for the offense is the running back room. How productive can they be? Turbo Richard is projected to be the starter. You also got like Jordan McDonald. I kind of forgot to cover running backs there. But outside of running back and a couple of spots on the offensive line, I like what they return on offense, and I love what they return in the front 7 on defense. So will it be enough for them to make an improvement or be just an improved team? Because to me, this schedule is considerably more difficult than what they had a year ago. It's somewhat similar, but I think drawing Clemson, adding in Notre Dame out of conference, that's pretty tough. Fordham, to start off, is going to be a win. I think this team's way too experienced to even mess around in this game. I think this game will not be close for a second. And apologies, I don't know if you guys did hear that, but the ringing of the laundry behind me. Michigan State on the road. I went back and forth with this game. They won a close one at home against Michigan State. I think they split the series. Jonathan Smith is a really good coach, and I don't know if Michigan State's going to have a great record in year 2, but I definitely feel like they're going to be improved, slightly more competitive, maybe give one of the top teams in the Big Ten, like Michigan, a scare. I'm just, by the way, Michigan an example because I know for a fact they're on the schedule. Everybody else, I mean, I think they play Penn State too, so maybe they could give Penn State a scare so you're not feeling picked on, Michigan fans. Regardless, though, I think without diving too deep in Michigan State, and maybe when we get around to previewing Michigan State, I could flip that prediction. That'd be a little disingenuous, but I'm reserving myself to do that because this game had me in a little bit of a blender as far as trying to think about it and figure it out and looking at what Michigan State has, looking at what Boston College has. I think the road environment, they lose a close one on the road. I think they bounce back, though, going out to Palo Alto and winning. I mean, Stanford's just a disastrous mess to me. The only thing they got going for them is a blue chip quarterback. Everybody that had an inkling of potential going forward in Troy Taylor's program left, other than him. And he hasn't played. So do we even know if he's got that type of potential? I don't. Off the bye, they play California at home. Look, I like California. I like Justin Wilcox, but a little bit of drama going on with the administration and bringing in Ron Rivera and how that doesn't really gel with Justin Wilcox. I don't know if Devin Brown or Jaron Kiwe Sagapolatelli is going to be the starter. I hope I nailed that, by the way. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't really care, though. I think this is a tough cross-country trip to take to Boston College and Boston College off the bye. So I'm going to take California to win. Now, I did a Pittsburgh preview already. I'm pretty high on the Panthers this year. I think the Panthers are a little bit of a dark horse sleeper team in the ACC that could contend for a title. I think their schedule sets up pretty decently. I got this being a loss on the road in Heinz Field against, or whatever they call it now, Pittsburgh. And then they host Clemson. They could give Clemson a sneaky game, but I feel like the slugfest that Pittsburgh could be the week before might just make it a tough week for Bill O'Brien to prepare for that type of monster and that type of NFL talent. So I'm going to give Clemson the edge here. I think they will pull away late and win that game. So at this point, 3-3 going into the UConn game. Again, a spot where Boston College teams have stumbled. If this senior class continues to rally behind this team, I think they should have no problem beating UConn. They're just more talented and more experienced than the UConn Huskies, even though, again, this is not a game to sleep on. UConn's been a solid team for the last couple of years, one that's been dangerous for Power 5 teams that are in the same tier as Boston College. At Louisville, right after that, I keep going back and forth with Louisville. I think the biggest thing is I am not a Miller Moss fan, but with that being said, wasn't a big Tyler Shuck fan. Didn't know what to think of Jack Plummer. It seems like Jeff Brohm gets most of these quarterbacks. I'm kind of buying more into Louisville than I was a couple of weeks ago. The more I've looked at them, I'm marking this as a loss for Boston College on the road at the Ville. And then they play Notre Dame at home. Really, really high on Notre Dame. I think they could potentially have the best offensive line in America. I think they've upgraded the wide receiver position. I think they have a better passer. I'm kind of leaning on CJ Carr to be a better passer. Probably the best running back in college football. This Notre Dame offense is going to take a tick up, and I don't think the defense is really going anywhere. I love the hire of Chris Ash. This is not going to be a game that Boston College, I don't think, has the capability to go and win. They play SMU at home, though. You talk about a game that's they're capable to win this game for sure. SMU coming up there. It's in November. Weather is going to be a little bit of a factor potentially. We saw how the cold may have affected that, in the crazy crowd may have affected Kevin Jennings a year ago. I like SMU. I don't love them as much. I don't think they're going to really hit the scene the way they did, and they got a really good draw. I think this is a tough draw for the SMU Mustangs, and Boston College gets a much-needed win here. But 3 straight home games. They play Georgia Tech to conclude this. Another Southern team coming up, but the smash-mouth brand of football that they have going on down there, Brent Key's squad and Haynes King running that football, running that quarterback power and the toughness. If Haynes King is healthy, I think Georgia Tech is a dangerous team. Now, I think they need to dial it back a little bit with the quarterback power, quarterback run game, and they need to tell Haynes, hey, quit inviting contact so much, because we saw the drop-off from Georgia Tech when they did have Haynes King and when they didn't. When they did have Haynes King, they were able to take Georgia to 8 overtimes and beat Miami. When they didn't have Haynes King, ran off the field against Notre Dame. Those are similar tier opponents in my eyes. So I think Georgia Tech, if Haynes King is healthy, that's going to be a tough game for Boston College. off the bye here for for Boston College. And if I remember correctly, either Syracuse has a bye right around here or the same week. So I don't really know if that's going to be too much of an advantage for Boston College here. Revenge on the mind. If Syracuse is going to be playing good football, it's going to be in November in the JMA Dome. I'm going with Syracuse, which will, even though I think Boston College could be a better team, I don't think their record is going to be better than a year ago. 5-7, 3-5. I mean, when you look at that schedule, there's a couple of games you could flip. I definitely think they could beat Syracuse or Georgia Tech. I think they definitely could win at Michigan State. That's kind of the one that, you see and you're like, well, I don't know about that one. So all in all, I think maybe the ceiling for Boston College is like 8-4, but they're going to be a feisty team, whether they're 5-7, 8-4. One that's not going to be fun to see on the other side of the line of scrimmage for even these top teams in the ACC plus Notre Dame. Those games are definitely not going to be easy for those opponents, even if I have Boston College losing a lot of them. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. 2 videos in one day. Kind of crazy. We'll have a good night's rest, and we'll be back at it tomorrow. I'll see you then.